Turning our sights now to Virginia, specifically the 10th Congressional District. 5 weeks from now, we will know who is taking the place of the great Representative Frank Wolf, a long-time serving Republican. And the choice is between John Faust, Fairfax supervisor, and this woman, Barbara Comstock, Virginia delegate, and hopefully, in her mind, the next Congresswoman. Thanks for joining us, Ms. Comstock.
Good afternoon. Great to be with you.
So, Barbara Comstock, I'm driving out there in Loudoun County this weekend, actually, and if it's a war of yard signs, I think you're winning. A lot of support I saw out there on the roads. I also saw a lot of Washington Redskins flags. As you know, that's kind of Redskins country. And
it is?
We just got word that the FCC is thinking about making that a dirty word on the radio. I wonder if you go to Congress, will you support your local football team there and make sure that the government stays out of that business?
I am. I think actually, and even that's a bipartisan consensus in Virginia. I think even the governor, Terry McAuliffe, had said he's going to focus on jobs and businesses, not getting into that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I agree, and we have a bipartisan caucus that wants to keep it that way.
But I'm not so sure about your opponent. I got to be honest. I saw your debate that you had, and it seemed like on education, on jobs, on almost every issue, he kept talking about solutions coming from Washington, D.C. He seems to be interested in government intervention. Would you agree that that's a pretty big difference between the two of you?
Oh, yes. I would encourage everyone to watch our debate that we had at the Loudoun Chamber. I guess it was about a week ago, and it's on C-SPAN, and it's on my website, BarbaraComstockForCongress.com. Actually, my opponent, his solution for everything actually is to raise taxes, and as a Fairfax County supervisor, he's raised our property taxes 6 out of the past 7 years. He supports a meals tax, which is even unpopular among Democrats who didn't want to put it on the ballot this year, and then he's also supported a 20% sales tax increase. Of course, supports the $1 trillion in Obamacare taxes. Yeah. He said Obamacare is clearly a good thing, I think was the quote, and he's doubled down on Obamacare even at a time when 250,000 Virginians are being kicked off their plans and told them to look elsewhere, or people like I met with yesterday who said their premiums have gone up 83%. That's clearly not a good thing.
No, and you're right. He was doubling down on the effectiveness of Obamacare in his words. I'm sure you saw today's Washington Post, or maybe it was yesterday. Kathleen Parker wrote a column and focused on your campaign. And by the way, this column is getting reprinted, syndicated nationwide now. I don't know if you know that, but it's getting picked up all over the place.
Sure. Yeah, no. Usually I don't see things in the Washington Post that are that friendly, so it's a nice surprise.
Well, she made the case that your race in particular there draws into focus the lie that is the war on women. This whole idea that the Republican Party has a war on women, because they're trying to make it sound like you, Barbara Comstock, are part of that war. And yet it seems to me that you're actually being treated differently by the Democrats in that district because you're a woman. They've been saying some really interesting things about you, again, because you're a woman.
Yeah, well, my opponent actually made the remark and has never apologized for it, saying, I don't think she's even ever had a real job.
Yeah.
Never had a real job, even though, first of all, I've been a federal employee, so it shows a lot of disrespect for how he sees federal employees. I've obviously been a working mom and a mom at home. Those are pretty tough jobs. And then I've been a senior partner at a law firm. So I think it really was, dissing a lot of different people who've had a lot of different experiences. I've been a small business person.
Well,
so he dismisses all those things, but I've been paying all his very real tax increases with my real job.
I also saw that, to suggest a mom doesn't have a real job is kind of offensive on its face. But
Exactly. That's the hardest job most of us who've been moms have ever had.
And no apology from John Faust on that, so he's on the record. Moms don't work. But also, I saw that the Democratic Party out there in the 10th District tweeted out that if you weren't a woman, you'd be 20 points behind. I mean, that really diminishes the voters' perception of who a good candidate is. Are they saying that you're only in it because you're a woman?
Yeah, well, as I said, that is absurd and it's offensive, but the real issue is they can't talk about their record. My opponent has no signature bills, no signature legislation. I've worked on human trafficking legislation, Lyme disease, the jobs bills, my competitive bidding legislation that saved money. He has no signature initiative that he's ever put forward. And if you watch that debate, he has no plan for the future because he opposes the energy economy. He opposes any kind of, sort of he didn't put forward any kind of tax incentives that he felt would be good for jobs.
Right.
I'm doing things, and then for families, I want to have a doubling of the child tax credit from $1,000 to $2,000. He said nothing about the tax burden on middle-class families, and when he first ran, he said he was going to lessen the tax burden on homeowners, and instead, he has increased it the entire time he's been there.
Let's face it, Barbara Comstock, we only have a minute left, but as Kathleen Parker points out, this whole idea of war on women really is a euphemism for the abortion issue. If you can, you're a woman. Tell me the pro-woman, pro-life position that you hold.
So, I am pro-life, but the ad that my opponent has up attacking me on that position has been demonstrated to be false by factcheck.org, an independent organization. They looked at the ad, and they found that his ad, like several others across the country, is just absolutely lying about our position and really what we can do. I mean, Congress has a limited role in what they can do because the Supreme Court handles these issues, and then, what we can do in Congress is, circumscribed by what the Supreme Court says we could do.
Right.
So, funding is the issue that we work on largely in Congress, and I do oppose funding of abortion, but I have exceptions in the case of rape and incest and life of the mother, and that is Congress on a bipartisan basis has funded abortion in those cases, and that's been the position of Congress, and that's my position. And he misrepresented it in his ad, and that's why factcheck.org said it's wrong, but take a look at our website at Barbara Comstock for Congress.
All right. We'll leave it there. Barbara Comstock, thanks for joining us. And as always, we invite John Faust to come on. We'd love to have him. We'll raise just as serious issues with him as well. Barbara Comstock, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you.
You heard Barbara Comstock. So what's your opinion here? Is this war on women thing falling flat on its face now? Have they lost the war on women, the Democrats, in this political campaign? Or is this really just getting ramped up for Hillary's run 2 years from now? 888-630 WMAL. Let's hear from you on the effectiveness of the war on women. It's 5:45 now. WMAL traffic and weather every 10